Prominent UK YouTuber Billy Moore posts a video over the weekend of himself in Glasgow city centre, my home city, and I wanted to talk about it in today's video, so that's what I'm going to dive into. Last week, if you haven't seen it, I posted a video about Charlie Veitch and his coverage of Manchester city centre on an average Saturday afternoon. And that video received a lot of attention, my coverage of it, and obviously Charlie's video. And today I want to do something similar with the Billy Moore video, only to give perspective of what my home city looks like in comparison to a major city like Manchester. Within the comments of last week's video, people asked me, well, is Glasgow better? No, I left Glasgow many years ago because the downturn was quite severe, and I've answered in the comments to many of these points that were made last week to say Glasgow is like a drug-fueled zombie epidemic. And I think watching Billy's video last night just simply highlighted that to me. So I wanted to talk a little bit about it, share my thoughts on what I witnessed. There were some key points in that video. I've watched this video one time, late last night, and a number of points stuck with me, and I'm going to just freeball this, give you a bit of perspective as to what I think, and also link to Billy's video if you haven't seen it. Billy's got something like 400,000 subscribers. I'm sure most people in the UK are aware who he is. He is a Liverpudlian street tuber. I'm giving him that title only because he visits local towns and cities within the UK and also across Europe to document what they look like. He's had a long past, wrote books, and has really changed his life in many ways. So if you're not aware of him, he's worth definitely having a look into, because he certainly has lived a life. I think you could say that about Billy, and so now he's found himself in this new world of documenting on YouTube and has had a lot of success, so more power to him. Right, for a bit of context, it's Sunday the 13th of July and it's just after 12:30. So Billy's video opens and it's not long before you're immediately in the midst of drama. I would estimate that this is filmed on Friday night, Friday just past, and I'll go into why I'm able to work that out, but it looks like it's about 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening and he finds himself in Glasgow city centre, an area that my wife and I lived very, very close to for about 5 or 6 years before we relocated to England. So when I saw Billy posting about Glasgow, I thought, oh, this will be like a little memory recall, a little twinge of thinking about home when I watched this content. So as I sat down, and the opening scenes of him finding himself on Argyle Street in the middle of Glasgow, I thought, well, okay, let's remind ourselves of where my wife and I used to live. And within seconds of the video opening, well, a couple of minutes, he meets a gentleman who's covered his face and his top in the red stuff. Saturday afternoon, and he's covered in his own claret. And from that, Billy engages in a conversation. You can see the mic on the guy's lapel as he's talking to him. It's a Scottish guy, Glaswegian guy, and straight off the bat, he's telling Billy that he's been into a dispute with another guy, and the man being interviewed has glassed the other man, proudly proclaims on screen that he's glassed that other man. And in retaliation, that man has stuck a pointy thing in his face, and so the redness that you see on his t-shirt is the pointy thing wound into his lower jaw. And the man then proclaims, well, the police have questioned me and I've told them I've cut myself shaving and they've let me go, and now I'm going to end that other person the next time I see him with extreme violence. Welcome to Glasgow, past city of culture. Beautiful. So those are the opening moments of this video to remind me of what life is like back in Glasgow. And when I read the comments of last week's Charlie Veitch video, people said to me, oh, well, do you remember, John, when we all used to go round with the Sharpie things, and Glasgow's got a culture of that? Sure, I'm aware that that is a culture. Do I remember that? No, because I didn't take part in that. I'm not that kind of a person. So whilst I'm aware that there is an element of that going on in Glasgow, I don't remember it personally, because I never had to do that. I didn't go to work tooled up. I didn't work in retail tooled up in case the moment came along. But this is what Billy's faced. So as he talks to the guy, you know, he's sharing a little bit about his life story. He's lost a brother through drug abuse, not surprising in Glasgow, mainly through Valium use, which is at epidemic levels in Scotland, probably more illegal versions of the tablet rather than prescription from doctors' surgeries, but who knows. But Valium is at epidemic levels in Scotland, particularly Glasgow. So he talks to this character, and again, this is Glasgow, right? And then Billy finds himself on a walk down to the Clyde, famous river where shipbuilding was part of Glasgow's heritage. Many naval ships built on the Clyde, and now the Clyde is the river that runs through the city centre. And Yvonne and I, my wife, used to live at the opposite side of the Clyde, Tradeston area. That's where we owned an apartment there for some years before we left for England. So Billy's at the opposite side, he's at the city centre side. And he goes for a walk there and is immediately greeted with what looks like many foreign men hanging around. A lot of police presence, checking them, questioning people for drugs, looking for what they're up to. And it just kind of gives quite a menacing environment. Not somewhere that I enjoyed a regular jog, a regular walk, now looks quite intimidating and quite dangerous. So the city has changed a lot in the 13 years that I've been away from there. Not surprising really, much like a lot of the UK. And then it's down there that he meets a couple of new characters, talks a little bit to the police, and then he heads along the side of the Clyde, which takes you to Glasgow Green. Now the reason that I've worked out that it was Friday and that he's in Glasgow is because as he gets closer to Glasgow Green, a parked area in the city, you start to see kind of stragglers, festival goers. Because this weekend, the weekend now, this is Sunday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, is a festival called Transmit. Held in Glasgow Green, a 3-day event that has no camping, so you just attend and leave from the city. Now, the Transmit Festival is the remains, the ashes, the embers of Tea in the Park. Tea in the Park used to be held at Strathclyde Park when it first started, and then as it grew, it had to relocate and ended up much further out of Scotland. But like all things in Scotland, it's experienced a lot of trouble over the years, and so in the end, it was brought to an end, and it was brought to an end over an issue around protecting wildlife, which was really code for this thing is so such a powder keg at this point, we don't think we should hold it. So they used the coverage, my opinion, personal opinion, used the coverage of having to cancel this long-running festival because of wildlife. But now, from the embers of that, you have a city festival that has no camping to avoid any of the potential troubles that flare up at camping, and people go and visit. So as Billy walks towards Glasgow Green, he starts to encounter festival goers. Here's the second point that I take from this video from Billy. As he's walking towards the city, talking to people, there are 4 foreign men tailing behind him. Now, I'm only giving you my opinion here, but they appear to be quite menacing from the video. And what's evident to Billy and me as a viewer is that every young female, every young girl leaving the festival, heading home in whatever kind of condition they're in, maybe a few too many drinks or whatever they've had, looking maybe like, you know, they just need to get to the bus or get to the train, are being accosted by the 4 men who are trying their hand, their luck. And Billy notices this, continues on, and every girl that passes, every daughter of some family is being challenged by these 4 men who are also being quite menacing towards Billy because of his camera.
They're just on the hunties. Telling you, mate.
Now Billy, if you look into his past, is an ex-boxer, not the kind of guy you would want to mess with, because I think he's probably got a decent hook on him. so he can look after himself. But he's had his fair share of run-ins with people over the last videos as well, particularly from foreign men in city centres that don't like being videoed. And so he finds himself in this situation heading towards the festival. So when you go and watch it, just pay close attention to what's happening behind Billy in the distance as he's walking towards the festival. Now, Billy proclaims, I don't know anything about this festival. Understandable, it's not really super well known beyond Scotland. But what was fascinating to me is you see youngsters coming out, you know, the teens and the 20s coming out, some a bit worse for wear. And as they leave the festival, all you can see are rows and rows of foreign men sitting watching festival goers leave. And I can't help, purely my opinion, feel like there's a kind of ominous vibe about it all. Quite a kind of, well, it doesn't look pleasant to walk out of a, hey, I've just been in this festival and I've came outside, and then suddenly there's just all these foreign faces staring at you. Not taxi drivers, not offering any services, they're just watching, just paying attention, looking around. And again, I would say, you know, I'm not a parent. Yvonne and I don't have kids, so I don't have to think about it the way maybe some of my friends would who've got teenagers now going to these kind of things. And it would be in my mind. I've talked about being a kid and going to concerts and being allowed by my parents. If I was 15, 16 now and I was going to one of these things, can't even imagine what my parents might think about that, given the circumstances that we live in now. Billy then stops off to speak to a Glaswegian man who's obviously in the past had issues with the white lines. He admits that himself on camera. And as he's talking, he's explaining that he doesn't have a problem with the migration issue in Glasgow. But what he has a problem with is that they're openly selling crack cocaine to school kids in the area. And he's witnessed this and he's talked to the police, and the police care nothing for what is going on. Zero care about the open drug dealing that's taking place at the Clyde to Glaswegian kids. And again, I would just say, you know, my time out of the city, it looks unbelievable what you're seeing going on. So that scene sits with me, and then I watch as a young black male challenges the police because he's left the festival and doesn't understand the rules that once you've left you can't get back in. As this man squares up to a police officer because he's decided that he wants to get back into the festival now. You know, if you've ever been to a festival or a gig, you know fine well it says on the ticket no readmission. But this is like a square up to the police. And again, you just question, like, what kind of morals and standards do we have when we're willing to go face to face with a police officer because you can't get back into a festival? And so again, I just watched this play out and I'm like, wow, just what is happening in all of these cities? And then my last point on all of this, the part that at least gave me a little bit of a smile, right, is that Billy talks to a couple of young girls coming out the festival. They're leaving early. 50 Cent is on in the background. You can hear 50 Cent ringing out. He's the headliner of this festival. I think he was booked as a replacement for somebody else that's dropped out. So 50 Cent was the kind of stand-in booking. 50 Cent is on ringing in the background, in the club. Billy talks to these two girls and says to them, how come you're leaving early, girls? If there's one thing you can rely on from a Glaswegian, it's honesty. The two girls look at Billy and go, we're leaving early because 50 Cent is shite. Honesty right there from two young lassies heading out, heading home. They've seen what they wanted to see during the day. They got their thrill out of it and they're off home because they can't be bored with some old guy shouting about being in the club. I mean, how old is 50 Cent now? Still shouting about being in the club. So that kind of made me chuckle a little bit, gave me a little bit of hope for the younger generation that at least they're still willing to say how it is in reality. 50 Cent is shite.
Why are you getting off, girls? Where are you going?
50 Cent shite.
50 Cent shite.
So I'm going to link down below that video. Go and have a look at it and let me know what you think. But Glasgow is like the zombie apocalypse. This isn't shit towns or cities, top trumps, there's no winning. Alright, you can let me know what you think about that in the comments. Thanks for watching, we'll see you in the next one.